G'day and thanks for joining us for another Australia Talks. I'm DK and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Ardeet. Today is Thursday, the 7th of May 2026, and our topics this week are Australia and Japan have signed agreements on energy, defence and critical minerals, and Queensland has fast-tracked Australia's first new oil province in 50 years. Of course, we've got our Two Ticks Town Talk, and then we'll jump into This Week in Australian History, and we'll finish off, as always, with the 4X Bottle Top Trivia. But before we get into all of that, let's catch up with the last week. Ardeet, hello! What have you been up to?
Hello! Probably still taking it a bit easy after the hernia op. He said give it 6 weeks on keeping things under 5 kilograms. So, been doing bits and pieces, but... just still concentrating on not doing a hell of a lot around the place. So there'll be stuff to catch up on, but I've got plenty of time to do that. Just want to keep this healing going well. And aside from that, we've been so I'm getting a bit behind with veggie planting. I'm trying a new method of the garlic. Normally there's a rough rule of thumb: plant on Anzac Day, harvest on Remembrance Day. So I'm a little bit behind on that, but I normally just put the cloves straight into the soil. But a mate of mine who's also into the garlic, he's been sprouting them in some water inside and getting them going. So I'm going to give that a go this year, see how it goes. I need to get a little bit more mushroom compost, as I think the soil was a little bit compacted again. Last year they were a little bit smaller than what I expected, so it'll be a good test to see whether, because I'll be planting my own stuff again, whether they get a bigger size or whether they stay about the same size. So yeah, it'll be an interesting experiment to see. There's always something to learn on that. And I thought of you this morning, which just sort of feels like the cold weather's just dropped on us. It was 6 degrees this morning, but it had a feels like of 2 degrees. Like I woke up and I thought, bloody hell, I am freezing. And we had the winter doona on and a blanket underneath that, and whacked Mrs. Ardeet whacked the flannelette sheets on as well. So it was nice, a nice little bed to be in. But yeah, it was. It was noticeably cold this morning. And I thought, God, you'd be in there just about paralysed with cold, with one of those little arm-reaching things on the end of a stick, trying to turn on the heater and grab your jumper out of the cupboard or something.
Oh no. Cannot do. That's way too cold for me. Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I did think of you. What about you? What have you been up to?
It has also been cooler. I'm not going to say cold after what you just said.
Down to 22 or something.
Yeah. Look, we got into the teens last night, and I think tonight and tomorrow we're also the same. So the slippers have come out, my Uggs. Yes, I'm a Queenslander. We all own Uggs. Yes, it's probably not that cold for them, but you have to take them off occasionally.
I'm wearing a pair of Ugg boots as we speak.
I was actually just looking around going, I didn't bring mine in here. I should probably go get them. So it has been cold. I've worn my jumper a couple of times already this year, but it's been nice and warm during the day. So it's actually I very much enjoy this time of year because we do get some these cooler mornings and nights, and then especially if we get the clear skies, and then it warms up during the day. So it's nice and pleasant. But I've been battling a bit of a stomach flu this week, unfortunately. Okay. We attended a good friend of ours' wedding over the weekend, and I'm not sure if it came from there or if it's something I picked up, sort of last week. I don't really know. But thankfully, fine through the wedding, and then come Monday, which was Labor Day here in Queensland, I sort of was a bit funny in the tummy, and then sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, it really kicked in. But like largely speaking, I've been okay. Just sort of like stomach
Just you
cramps
or
and
anyone else?
low energies. Yeah, just me in the house. So again, don't know what it was. Probably all the windows I was licking when I went past the shops. I don't know. They say you shouldn't do it when you walk past the bakery, but it's hard not to.
It's hard to resist, yeah.
But no, the only thing is that I really can just attribute it to when I'm out and about. I've obviously touched something that someone else has, or something like that, and I've picked up a bug. So thankfully, I'm basically back to normal now. So it didn't knock me around too hard, or anything like that. Just a couple of days, but yeah, just be mindful, be careful out there, and
careful what you lick.
Be careful what you lick. Be careful what you touch, and then it goes back to the COVID thing. Sanitize your hands before you eat and all that sort of stuff. But this is your final reminder. Mother's Day is this weekend in Australia. On Sunday is Mother's Day. So I think this podcast is released on Saturday. So if you're listening to this when it comes out, Friday. So if you're listening to this when it comes out, you got a couple of days, not long. Don't forget, call your mum at minimum, get her a gift, buy her some flowers, all that stuff. Look after your mum. Because she probably, hopefully, has looked after you. And if you don't talk to your mum anymore because she's a nasty person or something like that, maybe buy yourself something. I don't know. I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. All right. And if you are a mum, good on you. Congratulations. Enjoy your Mother's Day and all of that good stuff. Get spoiled, hopefully. All right, let's move on. Australia and Japan have signed agreements on energy, defence and critical minerals. That's right, Australia and Japan have signed multiple new agreements to bolster cooperation on energy, defence and critical minerals, whilst warning against economic coercion and promising to consider a joint response if their economic security is threatened. This I just want to elaborate on because nothing formal has been solidified at this point in time, at least not publicly, but I feel like we can probably assume that there's been some back table talks about strengthening relationship, and I'm quite excited for this. So Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his Japanese counterpart, Senai Takaishi, have held annual leaders' talks in Canberra on Monday morning as the two countries mark 50 years since signing the landmark Basic Treaty of Friendship and Cooperation. Takaishi's visit emphasises the close economic relationship with Australia, a critical supplier of energy, iron ore, food and other commodities, and Japanese firms are now the second largest foreign investors in Australia, which is amazing. Both leaders heaped praise on the relationship, with Ms. Takaishi saying Australia and Japan were now quasi-allies, and Mr. Albanese saying the relationship was increasingly indispensable in difficult times. He said, quote, "Our friendship has never been closer, and in these uncertain times, friendships matter more than ever," end quote. And I hate to say I can't disagree there. The two leaders signed 4 separate agreements, including statements on defence, energy and critical mineral cooperation, and a joint declaration on economic security cooperation. The declaration says Japan and Australia will share information and consult on economic contingencies, including those stemming from geopolitical tensions, economic coercion or major market disruptions, and consider measures in response if their security is threatened. I feel like this is one step away from a defensive treaty, and I really want them to go that extra level. Though who knows, that might be in the works, as I alluded to before. It also takes a thinly veiled swipe at China, which dominates the rare earths supply chain, and in January imposed restrictions on some rare earth minerals exports to Japan after Ms. Takaishi made conscientious comments about Taiwan. The declaration says, quote, We express our strong concerns over all forms of economic coercion and the use of non-market policies and practices that are leading to harmful overcapacity and market distortions, as well as export restrictions, particularly on critical minerals, that could have a significant negative impact on global supply chains. End quote. Japan and Australia have also signed a new agreement on critical minerals, saying they would elevate it to a core pillar of the economic relationship and identifying 6 rare earths strategic projects that they can support to diversify supply chains. They have also signed new leaders' statement on defense, which notes the unprecedented strategic alignment and increasing number of joint activities between the two countries. Ms. Takaishi said defense ministers of both nations would now explore tangible ways to further elevate and institutionalize comprehensive security cooperation. The two leaders, of course, discussed China, North Korea, and the Indo-Pacific, and the uncertainty of rolling energy markets because of the war in the Middle East, as we've spoken about too many times. And we will after the second segment. But it should be noted that Japan has been pushing Australia not to impose an additional tax on LNG exports, despite fury from climate groups who have pointed out that the Japanese gas companies on-sell vast amounts of that LNG onto other Asian markets. So, a little bit of a negative coming out. But look, I'm happy to see to have the Japanese people as our close friends and to strengthen our economic and military ties. I'm sure you feel much the same way, but how do you feel about this developments? And do you think that if we do an LNG tax, is this going to put strain on this relationship, or is it just going to kind of be, business as usual, we can get over this sort of thing?
I'm really pleased to see these relationships being built, and look, I particularly like the relationship we've been building with Japan for it's been several decades now. Certainly since the I suppose certainly since the late 50s, 60s, there's been a continual improvement and strengthening of bonds, and it's funny. We're sort of two very different cultures, but I don't know what it is that there seems to be. I don't know, there seems to be something with Australia and Japan that we just both seem to click with each other. And obviously you get on well with a number of other countries in particularly in our Southeast Asian neighbourhood, but I don't know, there just seems to be a special bond with Japan. I don't know, maybe it's the horrors of the past that both nations had to get over and come together and forge a new respect and alliance. Maybe that's part of it. There's some sort of depth in there, but I think it's a good I just on a feels type thing. I like how it feels in terms of the actual geopolitics and realpolitik of the situation. I think it's very prudent. Once or twice I might criticise government, but I've got Albo, and he'll probably get this as mates of the podcast know. He's a regular listener to Australia Talks podcast. He deserves, in my opinion, a bit of kudos for yet another strengthening of relationships with an important Southeast Asian neighbour and person in the region. Now he's been doing. It was interesting when you said that that there was a joint response agreement that wasn't formalised. And I feel like we've heard that a couple of times with Albo, and they're all steps. Albo's obviously the face of it. It implies he's actually got a good team behind him. I've heard that a couple of times with what he's been doing. So, positives and negatives. I think this is another positive. I think it's another diplomatically as well. It went very smoothly. It wasn't embarrassingly showy, but it was respectful, and it was mutually beneficial. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. Albo's got his duty to the nation of Australia, and Prime Minister Takaishi's got her duty to the nation of Japan. But if both of our nations can have a good solid relationship that benefits both of us, I'm all in favour of that. The tax that you mentioned, look, you can work through these things. Like we saw with Trump with the tariff, and there was people screeching about it was going to be the end of the world and doom and things are going to stop. You work out a way to get it, unless it's ridiculous or it's unfair and coercive. There's a certain level of understanding. So people curious about our discussion on the tax, have a listen to last week's episode. It was last week we discussed the gas tax, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So check that out. We've got a few views on it. So look, I think it might be one of those things. There might be a little bit of a slight show, but this type of relationship that's being built means that has a certain control about it. So, and was it Albo or Ms. Takaishi who said it's almost like we're quasi allies? I can't remember which one.
She did, yeah.
She did. Okay, yeah. I think that's a reasonable comment to make, because there's both of us are not superpower nations. When I say us, I'm talking Australia and Japan, and the alliances that are going on in the world, particularly the two big ones, China and the US, and the EU's a big one, Russia's a big one, but really China and the US are the big dogs in the room. We've got a lot of delicate treading that we have to do around them. I think the other side of it, the defence side, and as you and I frequently talk about on this podcast, energy and critical minerals are part of our defence. Now, a lot of people don't always see it that way, but that is encompassed in the defensibility of the nation, and I think having those as part of the agreement strengthens our defensive relationship with them, and I think it's prudent to have that relationship with someone in the neighbourhood. So look, obviously, from me, as what I'm saying, I'm viewing it pretty much as a positive all the way. From what I see of her and read of her, I like how she's doing things. She's obviously popular over there, so she's got some backing. I think she was the first woman PM, or actually, I could be wrong on that, but I think it was something like she was the first female PM and also the first leader at the same time. At the end of the day, who they all become a bit meaningless. But the fact of the matter is, she's obviously got the political savvy. So that's what I reckon. What do you think about the visit? How did it go? What do you think will be the reaction if we put the tax on? But more importantly, can you flesh out a bit more about you being a keen little bean about getting a defensive treaty?
So I do believe she is the first female Prime Minister of Japan, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So trailblazer in her own right. The Japanese self-defense. So Japan has their military is a bit unusual compared to how sort of most militaries work. They have because of the constitution that was written pretty much with the heavy input, let's say, from the US after World War II, Japan's military very much had to be downscaled, downsized, much like we saw with other countries at the same time period. So Japan doesn't have a traditional military. They have a self-defense force. It is unlike the Australian Defence Force, which acts to defend Australia's people, but they can act within the national interest, let's say. So things like we joined the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, as an example. They were not directly in defense of the homeland, but they were in the defense of national interests, let's say. You know, there's a lot of gray area there.
Yep.
If you know what I mean. Japan's self-defense force is very strict on what it can do and what it can't do. And that process is possibly going to change. Their constitution may get changed in terms of what the Japanese military is actually able to equipment that they can acquire. Like, quite famously, they're not allowed to have any aircraft carriers. They do have what we would call so we have helicopter landing ships that appear to the layperson as an aircraft carrier. Japan has a very similar one. They call it, I think, helicopter destroyers or something like that. So there's all this kind of like tiptoeing around the rules within the Japanese Defense Force. I think what's happening, though, the world is changing. We know this. We're seeing this day to day, that the global order is, at the moment, turbulent is probably a very nice political way of putting it. And I think Japan is, the Japanese people are aware of this. They know this. They know that alliances are being called into question. The Japanese, whilst they have a very significant self-defense force in terms of protecting Japan, you also need to remember that just off their shores, they have China and they also have North Korea. And so those are two nuclear nations. North Korea has one of the largest land armies in the world. They are probably not a huge threat to Japan, realistically speaking, outside of their missile capacity. And of course, they have nuclear weapons as well. So China is the big elephant in the room in the Northern Pacific, in that region. The Japanese are also an industrial powerhouse in a way that Australia just isn't. We have the resources, they have the manufacturing capability. And if we're going to, we've hitched our horse, much like Japan, to America, but it does feel like the American empire is, I don't want to say crumbling, but there's cracks that are forming, and those cracks are getting bigger and bigger. And so everyone's starting to look around the room going, okay, who are our friends that we can rely on? And for me, I would sleep a lot better at night knowing that I've got Japan on my team than not having them on my team, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So for me, I'm very bullish on this. And it's not just from a defense point of view, though I know I've just made the argument all about from a defense point of view, but also from a economic and industrial. I think there's a lot Australia can benefit and has benefited from Japanese manufacturing. For example, I drive a Japanese car. You drive a Japanese car.
Yep.
The vast majority of Australians, up until very recently, drove Japanese cars. It was our preferred brands of cars were all Japanese because the quality was fantastic. The reliability was fantastic. The prices were good, so on and so forth. We're starting to see the Chinese automakers, the Chinese automakers are starting to sort of edge them out, and that's more price-focused, I think, than anything else. And I think that'll kind of come around. But there's also electronics manufacturing, so on and so forth. There's so much stuff. The computer screen I'm looking at right now is Japanese, right? So you put it all together, and I think Australia is only going to be strengthened by having a stronger relationship with Japan. And I think the counter is true as well. We, as much as I hate saying that we're the world's quarry, we have a lot of resources that Japan needs. And so there's a beneficial relationship there as well.
Yep.
And so I'm quite bullish on this. I think this is a really, really good move. Like you said, Anthony Albanese, I think, has done an incredible job with his foreign policy so far. And if they can get some sort of proper alliance, and this is how it starts, right, is with these sorts of agreements, and then it kind of builds from there. If we can get some sort of defensive alliance or stronger economic ties, even beyond what we've already got, this step, I think is only going to benefit us in the long run. It's only going to strengthen Australia's position, and I think it's going to strengthen the Japanese position as well. At the moment, everyone's looking for friends wherever they can find them. And Japan is absolutely, should be, and is one of our biggest friends in this region of the world. You know, if you just look at a map and look at the developed high GDP countries in this region, naturally I look straight to Japan and South Korea, Taiwan as well. And so culturally, you're right, we are very, very different. But I think in some ways we are also very, very similar. And we've seen a huge amount of tourism. A lot of Aussies now want to go to Japan over other parts of the world. Even kids. We had some friends that went to Japan, and a bunch of sort of 10 to 14-year-olds who were there at an event. All of them went, I want to go to Japan so much. It's the place I want to go more than anywhere else, and all of this, which actually kind of surprised me. And so very much the Japanese are part of the Australian zeitgeist right now, which I think is awesome as well. So you put it all together, and I just look at this and go, this is a no-brainer. I think whoever's pulling the strings in the cabinet that's getting this stuff working is doing a fantastic job and should continue to do that job very, very well. So say what you want about the federal government's domestic policies, their foreign policies have so far been really, really good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we're basically in complete agreement and both got the good feels about it all.
Mm-hmm. And if you're one of our Japanese listeners, welcome to the club. I'd shake your hand through the podcast. Welcome to have you. Love you. And feel free to send merchandise and food my direction. Oh, I love it. Love it so much. It's amazing. You guys are the best food in the world, I swear. All right,
great food.
Let's move on. It's time now for our Two Ticks Town Talk.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, square, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled.
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, and it is a Two Ticks Town Talk, or is it? We're heading to Yea, Victoria. That is spelt YEA, but it's pronounced Yea, which is only about an hour out of Melbourne. But Melbourne's a big city, so it depends on where you are. To be precise, it's 112 kilometres, about 70 miles northwest of the state capital, Melbourne, at the junction of the Goulburn Valley Highway and the Melba Highway in the Shire of Murrindindi local government area. The area was originally inhabited by the Turungarung people. It was first visited by Europeans of the Hume and Hovell expedition back in 1824. And within 15 years, most of the land in the area had been taken up by grazers because Hume and Hovell said that it was good grazing land. The first European settlers to the district were the overlanders, who actually came from New South Wales, not Victoria, which surprised me. And
Wow.
they arrived in the 1830s, and by 1839, most of the suitable country in the area had been taken up and claimed. But the crossing of the Muddy Creek, as it was called by Hume and Hovell, because they're really good at naming things, which later on was renamed the Yea River, had become quite a busy part of the route from Melbourne to what would eventually become the goldfields at Beechworth and the Eastern Highlands, and also from Ballarat. So this very much was a spot where sort of one of these natural places where people were coming and going across sort of a natural river crossing, if you like. At first, a blacksmith had set up a hut and forge. He erected it on the Muddy Creek crossing, basically, literally on the banks of the river there. But this was a bloke, a land that was a part of a man named Miller's Murrumbidgee Station, and he wasn't too pleased about this. He told the blacksmith to essentially piss off, but he didn't want to because business was quite good with all these people coming through. So he naturally did what anyone does and complained to the government. The government decided to do something about it, which is uncharacteristic. And what they did was they sent out a surveyor who laid out a town plan in 1855. And that's pretty much where the town essentially started.
So what they took for the land from the bloke who was who was complaining. Did I hear that right? Or
yep, pretty much, yeah. Yes.
And that's why you never deal with the government.
That's why you don't ever whinge to the government, mate. You're only going to lose.
Yeah, just alert them to yourself.
Exactly. So clearly the blacksmith must have made quite a hustle and bustle and really made a good case.
Forged some political relationships.
Yeah, that was so much better than what I said. In 1857, we almost need a soundbite for this. Gold was found in the nearby Reedy Creek and elsewhere in the surrounding area. But it wasn't until 1859 that any payable gold was found in the area. So it took a little bit of time. But in 1860, some shepherds that were walking from one shearing job to the next shed near Yea literally kicked a nugget and because it was Sunday, the area they just called the Providence. And that word basically spread. And of course, this was gold rush time. And so throughout Victoria by 1859, so fast forward a couple of years, up to 1,500 men were working in the Providence and Gingin fields in the local area around the town. But rumour has it that in 30 years, 7,000 men came to the area to work those two goldfields, which is pretty significant for the time.
Wow.
The township, because the township was located so close to two major mining fields, naturally they grew significantly with the influx of hopeful prospectors. But as always happens, the good times can't last forever. And by 1889, the gold rush was, I don't want to say over. There were still people coming and going, but the major boom was very much over. So the quote unquote gold rush and the weaning off of prospectors wouldn't happen for another probably close to 20 years. But by 1889, the vast majority of gold that was going to be mined in the area had been mined, and they'd really exhausted their easily payable gold. But that wasn't the end for the town. They successfully transitioned from from gold extraction to farming and timber extraction. Farming had been popular in the area the whole time, but as naturally, when you see gold, it People go a little bit crazy for it.
Yeah, they do.
During the mining boom, to be fair though, I feel like I could get whipped up into that frenzy. You never know. Let's go look for the gold.
Oh, for sure. You ever panned for gold?
I haven't, but it's something I do very much want to do. Anytime I'm in a gold area, I'm always looking in the riverbanks. I'm always, looking and seeing if I can find anything, but I haven't actually got a pan and all that sort of stuff. But I've thought to get one. So
give it a crack. You see that little speck in there, and you think, and then you see another speck, and immediately, I don't know what it is about gold, but immediately your head starts going to that, what about if I get a little nugget? What about if I get a little bit more? So I can understand why people get obsessed.
I guess it's like gambling, isn't it? But there's something more tangible about it.
It is. You're just sitting there thinking, okay, well, it's my wits against nature and the environment that I've got, and the more I work, maybe the more I'm going to get.
You can definitely get the gold fever, as they say, isn't it? But during this mining boom, a few curious fossils were found and collected from the mining sites. That's right. This is a Two Ticks rock talk all along. We're talking about fossils. I lied. So,
just like that. Every time I want to go out, he just keeps bringing me back in.
So these fossils specifically were discovered in 1875, but to be fair, they weren't really given too much thought at the time, and I don't want to say they were discarded. They were probably put in a box somewhere and thrown in the back room and whatever. We'll get to them one day. Fortunately, that day occurred in 1935. A pioneering scientist named Isabel Cookson was going through the back room. Maybe she'd been pushed back there or something, I'm not sure. But she went through this fossil record and realized the significance of the find. Dr. Cookson identified the remains as an ancient vascular land plant. Her findings were globally significant, as they suggested that not only did complex land plants develop much earlier than had previously been thought, but that they also had first evolved in the southern hemisphere. The plant known today as Barraguanatha, it's a bit of a mouthful, first appeared about 415 million years ago at a time when Australia was still part of the Gondwana supercontinent, and long before dinosaurs even walked the earth. And these fossils are the oldest of their kind anywhere in the world so far discovered, of course. We've got to caveat it with that.
Sure.
So I'm going to try and tell you what they look like, but if I'm honest, there's not much to describe. They basically look like very big pipe cleaners. They have a long, skinny stem with small leaves kind of coming off in all directions. They sort of look like... I want to say fuzzy, but that's probably not quite right. The leaves are bigger than like a pipe cleaner, but that sort of shape, if you like. They do resemble what we'd have today, like club mosses or tassel ferns. Probably a tassel fern is the closest approximate, if you know what one of them looks like. But as always, there are pictures in the show notes if you are interested. But what made these plants special was their ability to be able to transport water and nutrients inside its strong stems. Thus, it was able to survive in direct sunlight and open air. The first plants to do so. Their small, simple leaves covered their stems, which were, they reckon, between a meter and a bit long. So not huge by today's standards. But most other plants at the time were only a few centimeters tall, and almost all of them, well, literally all of them were aquatic. Some plants could kind of sit on top of the surface of the water, but up until these plants, as far as we know so far, literally none came onto land.
Right. Okay. I'm with you now on that significance.
Yeah, so these were literally the first terrestrial plants anywhere found on Earth. The Baraganthea plants that we have as fossils of today were once washed back into the sea, which there was a shallow sea that covered most of Victoria during the Devonian era. And so basically the plants that we have the fossils of were, kind of ironically, washed from the shore back into the sea, where they were fossilized and preserved in marine sedimentary rock. So their unfortunate demise, they tried to escape the sea and were pushed back into it. Their unfortunate demise is a fantastic gift to us today. And these fossils are remarkable because they show even microscopic details of the plant's anatomy. And this is partly because the bacteria that would generally break down a tough plant tissue were only just beginning to evolve, because these plants didn't exist before them. So there was nothing for the bacteria to eat. So this is one of these crazy times in history where they're the first, so sort of the ecosystem hasn't really caught up to be able to consume them. So they are incredibly well preserved in a way that other fossils of similar plants at a later stage just generally aren't, which is amazing. Like, this just shows you how old these plants are. So the Yea site provides the earliest record of vascular land plants in Australia and so far the world. The plants show remarkable adaptations that helped them to make the difficult transition from the marine environment to life on land. And for this reason, and because of the Yea I can't say this. It doesn't roll off the tongue.
No, I picked that up.
Yeah. Baraganatha fossils are considerably older than any similar ones that are found in the Northern Hemisphere, because there are similar ones found in the Northern Hemisphere. The Yea fossil site is of international significance. Unfortunately, though, if you go to Yea today to see the fossil site, going to be disappointed. There really isn't much to see. The area, and again, it's all in the show notes, all the information you could possibly want. The area where they were found today is private property, and they're all farms. There is no visitor center or really much of anything to see if you literally go to where they were found. Which is kind of disappointing. I feel like for such a significant find that they might have put up, like, I don't know, a bloody plaque or something. Kind of uncharacteristic, actually, for Australian stuff. But anyway.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the Yea Wetland Discovery Centre in town does have a section on fossils found in the area. And also the Melbourne Museum has Baraganathae fossils on display as well. So if you go to the Melbourne Museum, which is actually quite a good museum to go to.
It is a good museum, yeah.
You can see them there as well. They also have a Triceratops skeleton on display right now. And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth going to see. So shout out to the Melbourne Museum. So if you are in the Melbourne area and you want to get out for the day, you don't know where to go, you don't want to go too far, just a day trip, go and visit Yea, a small town with an incredible history, from ancient plants to gold to agriculture. Get out there, see more of this magnificent country. Small towns like this really appreciate day trippers coming, having a pie, having a walk around. Go to the Wetland Discovery Centre and see what's going on. And who knows? Maybe if you're digging in your backyard, you might discover a new fossil that's previously undiscovered that's going to change everything. Who knows?
Well, who knows? I mean, you never know. There's plenty of stuff that we've covered where, it's just an accidental discovery, like that kicking a nugget. I mean,
Right.
It's not the first time in our Two Ticks Town Talks that a nugget's been discovered because somebody accidentally kicked it. Imagine doing that, and you're there and you sort of kick it, and you'd be thinking, oh, bloody hell, I've just kicked a rock, and you'd look down the set and you think, that's an interesting rock. Just going and catching that glint of gold where your foot is scuffed it, or the blood from your bleeding big toe is actually like rinsed it clean, and you're seeing that bit of gold in, and then that thing of just, you'd be starting to think, oh, I can't believe it, and you'd start doing that bit of a dig down, and pulling out something like the size of your fist, or some of those bigger ones that we've seen, and just think, I need to kick that over. It would be. That would be amazing, and it has happened. It still happens in different spots. But that's that it's the first plant that came out of the water, and it's down. I'm surprised to hear it happened down our way. And look, obviously, it has happened somewhere. And as you said, we were still part of Gondwana land there. But that's extremely significant.
It truly is incredible. I can't even remember where I first heard about this, so apologize to whoever told me about this. But like I couldn't believe it. And the reality is this literally the first plant to exist on land? Probably not. It's probably one of the first, but it might not be the first. It's just the oldest one we've found. And as we know with these things, particularly with fossil records, you have to have a very specific sort of circumstances of events for something to be fossilized and preserved in that way. And then, of course, you have to find it. And if we don't find it, we don't know. And this is a good example. Like you said, they kicked that nugget, they started digging for gold, and then they just happened to find this through that process. If they didn't kick that nugget, didn't find that gold, those fossils would very likely still be in the ground. And the reality is there very possibly are older fossils, possibly in this area, possibly elsewhere in Victoria and throughout the country, that may completely change things as we know them today. And it's just a matter of, we got to find them. Am I encouraging you to go out there and start digging up your backyard to find fossils?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I am. Get out there, dig a hole, see what you find. Probably nothing, but maybe
dig
not.
Up your neighbour's one. Just go for it.
Just
if you've got access to dynamite.
Yep. Just start tunneling. Just start digging.
Wild, random tunneling. Just follow your gut. Go in whatever direction you think, there's probably a fossil over there, and dig.
That's right. Don't let the cave-in or the threat of a cave-in stop you. I should say there is a small, what do we call it? A small
chance
sign.
of death.
Very, very, very high chance of death if you're tunneling. But there is a small sign in Yei for where the site approximately was that they discovered the fossils. It's basically very common around Australia to have like on the shoulder of a road where it's sort of like a gravelly area where you can pull over and do a wee or whatever. And often they store piles of gravel and stuff like that besides the road. It's literally next to one of those on Limestone Road in Yei. If you are interested and you really want to go to the site for some reason, but that's it. That's the extent of what exists there. There's no plaque. There's no signposts, with more information or anything like that. So it is a bit ordinary, but look. Get out there, see more of this country, as we always say, because for something so close to a major metropolitan area, it feels like a lot of the stuff happens in really remote areas. But it's kind of fun that this is literally an hour and a bit out of a major city. And I'm absolutely certain some of our listeners live in Melbourne. So if you're looking for something to do, on a long weekend or even this coming weekend after you speak to your mum, go up to Yea, have a look at the fossils in the Wetland Discovery Centre and just have a good weekend. Have a good time. Explore some of the local area. Why not?
Oh, very good. Very interesting.
All right, let's move on. Queensland has fast-tracked Australia's first new oil province in 50 years. That's right. The Queensland state government has taken uncharacteristically rapid action to unlock the Taroom Trough, ratifying a new development plan that could establish, I'm going to put a big asterisk on that could, as you'll find out why as we go through this, could establish Australia's new oil province since the 1970s. The State Development and Public Works Organisation, Taroom Trough Development Plan Works specifically, Amendment Regulation 2026, say that 10 times fast, was approved in just over 2 weeks since the government first announced its streamlining plan. This key step officially activates the Coordinator General's powers to drive whole of government planning for the region. The move comes after the government's first flagged its intent to streamline the project, aiming to bolster national fuel security and amid ongoing global supply chain validity. Hang on. What's going on in the global supply chain? This is the first I'm hearing about it. That volatile supply chain. Funny how quickly the wheels of bureaucracy can move when they want to, though, hey?
Yeah.
Anyway, expectations should be tempered. Experts and some in the industry are urging caution, and so am I. Don't get too excited. There are several hurdles proponents must first overcome before it's drill, baby, drill. One thing proponents and experts agree on, though, is that accessing the oil is not going to be cheap, nor is it going to be easy. The resource is trapped more than 3,000 meters below the surface, which is, look, if you can tunnel that far, I'll be impressed. Let's put it that way. This is much deeper than the CSG wells currently scattered across the region, which are typically only a few hundred meters deep. Once at the depth of the oil, that 3,000 meters, horizontal drilling would need to begin, continuing for a couple of kilometers before the rock is hydraulically fractured. Dun, dun, dun. We're talking about fracking here. And most importantly is that we currently have no idea how much oil is actually down there. Richard Coddy from Elixir Energy expects that it could produce 30 million barrels of oil from its acreage and enough gas to supply 10% of Australia's eastern seaboard for a decade, which sounds incredibly promising, but he has no idea exactly how much oil is in the Taroom Trough currently, and quite frankly, no one else does either. Multinational oil giant Shell is also exploring the Taroom Trough. Shell QCG is currently producing 200 barrels of light oil per day from one of its wells at the site. A drop in the ocean compared to with the 1 million barrels of oil a day that Australians use. So just to put that into context of what we're talking, Shell QCG Vice President Krishna Venkatsan says, quote, "It's really high quality oil that can be used to refine and produce diesel. More than 50% of what we produce can be refined into diesel, and the rest can be used for solvents and other chemical products that can be used for industry," end quote. So the reason that's important is because oil isn't made equally. And so the fact that it is good quality stuff is quite important for this. Queensland's Resources Department says that early technical assessments of the Taroom Trough indicate that it could produce up to 1,000 barrels a day per well in the short term. But the only way to get a better idea of what the potential might be at the peak of production is by drilling more exploratory wells, of which there are currently about a dozen. Elixir Energy and Shell QCG says that all wells they've drilled so far, oil has been struck, which is very promising. But in an interview with 7:30, ABC's 7:30, Mr. Vinkatson wasn't as optimistic about the Taroom Trough as the Premier. He said, quote, "We've been quite clear at this moment in time, it's early days. We don't know how much we have in the ground today, and hopefully in the next 12 months we'll be able to get a better view. It's now about the scale, and for that scale to happen, we need significant levels of investment, and that investment can only come through once you understand what's the total the basin can offer. If we can unlock this basin, and I believe the raw resources are there, this could be part of the solution to meet Australian energy needs," end quote. So he's kind of throwing a little bit of cold water on this, but look, watch this space. Queensland
responsible cold water.
I think so. I think that is quite responsible, and I've got some thoughts about what the Premier's been saying, but I'll save them for the minute. Look, Queensland might come out as a major energy powerhouse in the oil sector, or this could be a bit of hot air. But how do you feel about this? What's your expectations, and how do you feel about the excitement and fast tracking all of this? Is this a bit of political hoo-ha, or is there something more to this?
Well, mix that. Look, got to say, overall, I got the big kevs about this. Very pleased to. I was very excited to see that news. Very excited to see that announcement. Now, two things can be more than one thing can be true at the same time, and in fact, there's a lot of things that are true in here. I can still want to move to clean energy. I do want to move to clean energy. That's the future. Renewables, geothermals, nuclear, all that clean energy. But we still are a fossil fuel driven world economy. We use worldwide. And this hasn't been going down, but worldwide, we use 100 million barrels of oil a day. And now I'm not sure whether that's exactly oil or oil equivalent, but the technical term for it is an absolute shirtload of energy in fossil fuel every day. Now, renewables, fantastic to see that. That's the way I want to go. But we still are reliant on fossil fuels to lift people out of poverty, to bring us all the stuff we value, to drive most of our transport still, to ship the goods and services and resources across on the ships. Things will change inevitably. Of course they're going to. I mean, there's too much profit incentive to perfect renewables. But at the moment, that's still a long way off. And you can't just sit here and say, oh, well, no, we don't want to do any more of that. So we'll just ignore what we're actually sitting on. And I would say potentially, look, I'm familiar with Richard Coddy, as mates of the podcast know. Usually once a year, myself and Mrs. Ardeet will go up to Noosa Way they now do 2 mining and exploration conferences. So I've seen Richard Coddy, and he's a keen bean. He's a bit of a character. So yeah, he also knows how to sell. That's his job as CEO and managing directors of whichever companies he happens to be involved with. But he is an old dog in the industry who has a lot of knowledge, and he can present very good arguments for it. And he's also been right on a number of things. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am mistaken, he's getting credit with it. It was hearing him, oh, God, I can't remember how long ago it was. Wild guess doesn't. It's not. It doesn't matter if it's exact or not. Something like 2007, 2010. Him talking about the gas crisis for the eastern seaboard of Australia and why it was already a problem, why it was going to get worse, and it might not have been sort of as quick on the timeline as what he was warning, but he identified it correctly, and he's had a couple other ones. So I give him a bit of credit for that. I also do give. It's interesting that Shell's involved. They're don't know many people who wouldn't know who Shell is. So they are a big company, but I forget the spokesman's name that you said for Shell, talking about throwing a little bit of cold water on it. These things can be there, but you don't know unless you spend a lot of money and a lot of time. And for something that's big, you have to put a big amount of time, money, and resources into it. And the other thing that I think people do get confused with, and unfortunately I think politicians take advantage of this. I don't remember what JORC stands for, JORC. But it's a standard for identifying resources. And I can't remember all the different levels, but basically it's essentially, oh yeah, we reckon there's something there, to, oh yeah, we've got a bit of a sniff of it, to, oh, we've actually got proven signs that there is something substantial there, up to, no, all our drilling verifies that this is what we've got there as a proven resource. We can now plan and go ahead with our mining and taking it into production. So I think it's prudent of the Shell person to be saying, really, they're still at that exploration stage and still haven't proven what's there. Now, that doesn't mean it won't be a ridiculously huge find, but it also means that it may be a bit of a dud. And I think what a lot of people do forget is these companies, not every time they drill a hole in the ground does something come up. They do a lot. Yeah, exactly. They do a lot of drilling. They do a lot of exploration that turns out nothing, and all that costs money. All that takes time. And then once you've actually got it, like, let's say, even if let's say you wake up to morning, Shell said, oh, we've sunk a hole in the ground. It's the final hole that we needed to prove that we've got all this stuff here. Right, we can now start building a plant and a mine for it. It's still going to be at least something like 10 years.
It's going to take 10 minutes to set this one up.
At least
if only
10 minutes. No, it's going to take 10 years, and unfortunately, I'd say in the environment here in Australia, you're going to be looking a lot longer than that, which again comes into it. So, I would paraphrase most of those qualifications and excitement with the New South Wales announcement as well, that they're allowing petroleum discovery in I can't remember the region they've got there. There's a lot of qualifiers for it, but you don't find anything unless you actually get out there and start looking for it. And it comes back to my opening point: is it's still essentially a national treasure. We can go hand in hand with building renewables, but it's just putting your head in the sand to say, oh, let's ignore our fossil fuels because we've got this this vision of where we want to go to in the future. And we're literally talking several generations before we can start to really significantly have a decrease in fossil fuel demand. And so Australia may as well be part of that market, may as well be part of that money making. If we want all these benefits, we've talked about a number of programs over the last couple of years that people want the Australian government to do. That'll cost money, and the best way Australia can make money, or not best, but one of the main ways Australia tends to make money is dig it out of the ground. We've obviously had opinions on value adding, etc. But we're sitting on a national treasure, and I think blind ideology to me is a dangerous position to take for future generations. So as I said, got the big kevs about it. Be interesting to see how it goes. This will be a multi-year story. So who knows whether we'll be talking about it in the future if we're still here doing it, or whether it still comes up as a topic or whatever it is. Who knows what the future is, but at the moment it's a good start. So how do you feel about it? What's your opinion too on, you said you had some thoughts on the what the Premier was saying, and generally overall about this as it relates to Australia's push for renewables?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna throw some cold water on this as well, and there's 4 current active exploring companies in the region. They're Omega Oil and Gas, Elixir Energy, who what's his name? Richard Cotty is. That you mentioned before, Richard Cotty. Yeah, he's the head of Elixir Energy, and look, he himself has a bit of a pedigree in this region. He sort of brought in the fracking of the coal seam gas and all that kind of stuff. So he has a pedigree out in this region, but that doesn't, just because you're right once doesn't mean you're right a second time. Though, credit where credit's due, he was right the first time. So his company, Elixir Energy, Santos, and QCG, which is Shell, owned by Shell, which I believe is Queensland Gas Company or something like that, which is owned by Shell these days. So there's some big players in this space that are looking for this. And I believe they've committed something like $500 million for exploration and appraisals in the area. So it's a significant amount of money that they're throwing at this to really get into it. But like you said, even once they drill, once they know, once they can confirm, they're not going to set up, significant drilling and pumping infrastructure unless the volume is there to make it work, to make it profitable long term. And I think that's where people get very excited to go, oh, there's oil here. And it's like, yeah, but there needs to be a certain volume and the quality to make it worthwhile, because they're not going to spend billions of dollars setting up essentially a new industry when they're not going to get that money back. So there's that needs to be considered. And we could be talking potentially years before those are completely figured out, even without all the red tape. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully it is sort of 12 months before we get a really solid idea of how much oil is down there and where's the best place and what peak production could be. But we're also talking about a huge, absolutely massive area. We're talking, the Taroom Trough is 43,000 square kilometers in size. So it's ridiculous. This goes from near the border of New South Wales way up past Gladstone. So this is absolutely a huge area that they're exploring. So traversing this amount of space takes time. And so you put it all together, and we're not going to have cheap oil coming out of outback Queensland in the next 5 years. It's like you said, it's probably going to take a decade before we start production at a significant level that's going to make a difference to probably most likely Queenslanders, is where you would most likely consume a lot of that fuel here in Southeast Queensland, because we do have a refinery up here as well. But at the same time, in 10 years, or even in 12 months, is it going to be financially viable once the Strait of Hormuz and everything like that? We've had the UAE leave OPEC, so they may drive the price of oil down to crazy levels we've not seen for a long time. So there's a lot of big question marks about this development, that all of those stars kind of have to align for this to make financial sense to then go ahead and do it. And right now, I'm not sure if those things are going to line up. I think this is a situation where there is an opportunity here. And right now, at this moment, it makes sense. In 12 months, in 5 years, in 10 years, does it still make sense? We don't know. And so it's very much going to depend on the volume of oil and the quality of that oil. So far, it is looking promising, but there's a lot riding on those things, and of course what the international oil market does. So I think there's a 50-50 chance if this goes anywhere, quite frankly. This may go, nah, you know what, we're going to keep it in the ground for now. We know what's there. We've done the Explorer. We know how much is in there, and for now it doesn't make financial sense for us to drill. But we'll come back to it at a later date potentially. And so they may set up some basic infrastructure and stuff like that ready to go when something like this happens again, or something to that effect. So the other big thing is, and kind of my frustration is with the Queensland government. The Premier was out there on the ground with his hard hat on, taking all the photos. And we're going to fix the oil crisis and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, that as well. I get it. It's politicians doing politician things. But it is quite frustrating when you look at them and go, come on, that's not how this works. And you know it as well. Because ultimately, as much as Queensland can cut all the red tape and roll out the red carpet, it's not just the Queensland government that has a hand in this. The federal government does as well. And the federal government energy minister hasn't even had a proposal put on his desk yet, so he can't approve anything, whether they streamline it or not. Because as of right now, there isn't a proposal because they don't know what they're sitting on. So it's such early days to talk and really get excited about something that we don't really know what's down there right now. And that's the big problem. Is this could be huge. It could also be a nothing burger. And I guess that's what's quite frustrating. The Premier's talking about it like Queensland's going to be energy independent with oil production coming out our ears, and every kid's going to have a glass of oil before they go to bed and all this sort of crap. But the reality is that's probably not what's going to happen. And hopefully it might. I'm quite bullish on this. I think if this does pay off, it'll be amazing. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this whole thing. I think it's quite fantastic if this does pay off. But let's be a bit realistic about it. It's such an early days yet that we have no idea if this is going to come off or not. Fingers crossed it does. This isn't new technology. We're not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. It's difficult. It's costly. But it can be done. It's done elsewhere in the world and things like that. So those hurdles have already come. The engineering problems have all been overcome, so on and so forth, right? So now it's just a matter of how much is there? How much is it going to cost to get out? Does it make financial sense? And that is the big question mark hanging over this. And quite frankly, right now, we don't know. And things might change. As we know, the price of oil changes very quickly. It goes up very quickly. It doesn't come down very quickly, but we'll see. In 12 months' time, we could be awash with cheap oil from other parts of the world, upping production, and then the Middle East might come back online, and before we know it, we're all swimming in oil. So I think this is a case of state politics getting a win in a way that they can. Hoo-ha, we're going to drill for oil and blah, 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 blah. But the reality is we're not going to see anything out of this for quite a long time, even if it does pay out. But I'm giving it 50-50 if this is going to actually realistically become a significant part of Australia's energy production. I do think they'll still continue drilling. Like they've already tapped a number of smaller wells, exploratory wells, and some of those are producing oil, and some of that is, being made into diesel. So it's not nothing, but it's a drop in the bucket. Like we're not, you know, it's essentially nothing compared to the amounts that we consume on a regular basis. So I think the opportunity here, but yeah, I'm throwing some ice water on this. I don't really know.
Fair enough.
I don't know. No one knows, and until we know, then we can decide. So I wouldn't rush out just yet, and you know, start buying big diesel trucks and generators and things like that. So
Yeah.
you know. All right. Let's move on. It's time for This Week in Australian History and see if there's any gold or oil being found this week.
Okay, this week in Australian history, we're covering 1st to 7th of May. On May the 1st in 1770, Forby Sutherland, who died of tuberculosis, is buried at Kurnell. Funny talking about oil. Kurnell Oil Refinery used to be there. He's buried at Kurnell in New South Wales, becoming the first British subject buried in Australia. So,
I would imagine he was probably the first tuberculosis death in Australia, probably too. I'm not sure if tuberculosis is endemic to Australia. I wonder if he turned into oil.
Yeah, I think couple million years more. 1st of May, on 1891 on 1st of May, the first May Day marches in Australia are held at Barcaldine in Queensland in support of a shearers' strike. So there was a key moment in the Australian labour movement where there's a whole lot of shearers protesting poor conditions at the Great Shearers' Strike, and they consider that basically the birthplace of organised labour and celebrated in Australia and linked to the origins of the Australian Labor Party. In fact, the Tree of Knowledge sits in Barcaldine and it's a National Heritage Place. Am I pronouncing that right, Barcaldine?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay.
I've not been out that way, though, so I could be wrong.
Right. Okay. 1946, the Pilbara strike commences with 800 Aboriginal pastoral workers walking off the stations in Pilbara and Kimberley regions, so over the other side of the country in Western Australia. They walked off demanding fair wages and better conditions, and it was one of the longest industrial actions in Australian history, lasting 3 years until 1949. So that was another interesting 2 strikes in a row on the May. May 2nd, 1829, Captain Charles Fremantle claims the entire west coast of Australia in the name of George IV of the United Kingdom, establishing the Swan River colony. I like what I'm seeing. I'll have all of it.
I'll have from here to the horizon, and the horizon beyond that, and the horizon beyond that.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
That's right. May 3rd, 1804, in the Australian Frontier Wars, Aborigines attacked the newly established settlement at Risdon Cove in what is now Tasmania. And it was sometimes called the Risdon Cove Massacre, and it occurred shortly after British settlement in Van Diemen's Land. But it was marked early violent resistance by the Palawa people to colonial expansion.
I should add, Risdon Cove is in modern-day Hobart, so this is the original Hobart colony.
Thank you. 1820, John Joseph Terry and Philip Connolly become the first appointed Roman Catholic priests in Australia, arriving in Sydney, New South Wales. 1840, New Zealand is officially proclaimed a separate colony from New South Wales. So,
but no one told New South Wales that, though. If you read their constitution, it still includes New Zealand. So, that's a bit awkward.
Well, yeah. So what you're saying is we should be creating plans to invade New Zealand.
100%.
Or am I reading too much into that comment?
No, yeah. It's time to take
it back. Time to reclaim what is rightfully ours. 1942, the 5-day Battle of the Coral Sea fought between the Imperial Japanese Navy and Allied naval and air forces commences in the Coral Sea. That's between Australia and the Solomon Islands. It was the first naval battle in history fought entirely by aircraft carriers. May the 5th, 1865, bushranger Ben Hall is ambushed and shot dead by police near Goobang Creek, New South Wales. 1906, the first electric trams begin operations in Melbourne with the opening of a service from St Kilda to Brighton. 1998, 4 Royal Australian Navy sailors die from carbon monoxide poisoning after a fire aboard HMAS West Australia. And as DK has detailed in previous Two Ticks Town Talks, did lead to major safety reviews in the Royal Australian Navy. And I've got here, fire was caused by a fuel leak in the engine room. Was that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
This is one of these ones where they go, safety rules are written in blood, and unfortunately for those sailors, it very much did occur. So, yeah.
Yeah. May 6, 1910, George V becomes King of the United Kingdom and the British Dominions, which obviously include Australia, after the death of his dad, Edward VII, in London. May 7th, 1942, during the Battle of the Coral Sea, carrier forces from the Imperial Japanese Navy and the United States Navy exchange airstrikes in the Coral Sea, and it was a day that saw intense air battles that were part of the larger engagement, and that fighting prevented a Japanese invasion of Port Moresby. And finally, in 1908, Australia's first coat of arms is granted by King Edward VII. So the original 1908 coat of arms featured a kangaroo and an emu, but was later redesigned in 1912. So it's obviously an important national symbol. And what many people don't know is that in the first draft, the roo and the emu were each holding a lager.
That feels like it could be true, though.
It does. Oh, God, that would be funny. Maybe we start a movement. Yeah. So yeah, let's imagine a kangaroo and I don't know how the emu would hold it. Maybe the roo's holding one for him and one for the emu, each enjoying a beer. All right, that sound, as we know, takes us to the 4X bottle top quiz. Now, I was going to do a part 2 of the rivers in Australia, which I did 2 weeks ago. But the questions I found that too many of the questions had the same answer. This isn't part of the quiz, but can you guess what that answer was, DK?
The Murray?
It was! I looked at the ones I had left. I thought, it was Murray. I thought, no. So we're going to do communications in Australia, and this will be a part 1. We'll do in a fortnight. I'll do a couple more on communications. So, mixed things on this. You've got a good memory on some of these things, and other ones you can reason out. But we'll see how we go. Ooh. So, question 1: in what year was Australia's first telegraph line opened? And bonus points if you know where, but in what year?
Ooh. I don't know. I'm trying to think of when the first, the overland telegraph was done. But then you'd have to have... Okay, so famously with a telegraph, you need a sender and a receiver. So where would the first telegraph in Australia be going to and from? That is the big question.
And give you a hint, probably not as far as you think.
Yeah,
Not suburb to suburb, but it certainly wasn't something like capital city to capital city.
No, that's what I was sort of thinking. Originally I was like, oh, you think it would be like Sydney to Melbourne, but that's too far because you wouldn't, along that way, you would also connect up a bunch of other places, right? So maybe that's where the telegraph line did go, but that wouldn't have been the first telegraph. It would have been somewhere in between. But I don't think it would have been out of Sydney, even though it's the oldest colony, because the Blue Mountains are just a real pain in the bum to deal with.
Oh, wow. Good. You're correct. It wasn't Sydney. That's good reasoning.
So I reckon it's probably Melbourne, and it's probably to the bloody goldfields or something like that, on its way towards Sydney or somewhere else, maybe like Ballarat or something like that. So, or maybe did it go south? Or maybe it went to Geelong. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to say
it did. I'll give you. It did head down to Williamstown.
Williamstown.
Which is basically like other side of the Balti Bridge, like the other side of the Yarra. So,
okay. So today that's like a suburb of Melbourne,
a suburb,
isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
But I guess back then it was like a port or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I'm happy to be corrected, but I thought it had a port back there. Yeah,
probably on its way to Geelong then. I would assume. Yeah, right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so that's where it was, and the year, which is the question. I'll give you a hint. Britain, United States had the first patents for the electric telegraph technology registered in 1837.
I'm going to guess. Things take a long time to get down here because also we just didn't have the population for it. I'm going to guess 1860.
Not a bad guess. 1854. So you're right. It did take longer, but they had began between Melbourne and Williamstown in 1854. But then within 4 years, Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide were connected. It was one of those things that I suppose it's one of those things that sells itself. So, it's real. I mean, I think it's literally speed of light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Electricity. Yeah. Yeah, and if it's not exactly with all the different relays, it's pretty bloody close too. So it would have just been an amazing technology.
I mean, before that, it would have been a rider with a piece of paper, which could take a long time, depending on how far he's going. So, yeah.
Yep.
We just take it for granted now.
Yeah, exactly. And as a side thing, I think the first fax was developed, or the concept of the fax was developed in something like the 1890s, early 1900s, of that thing of, if I can send the coordinates of dots on a piece of paper, I can describe a picture. Didn't take off, obviously, until later on. But the fax, the concept of sending a fax is like really old. Question 2, when did the first public radio station in Australia open and where?
Ooh, radio. That's a good question.
Public radio station.
Public radio.
Because I've got to tell you, trying to find out the first bloody radio broadcast in Australia, there's so many conflicting things about it. I got to the point I thought, no, I'm going to pursue this because it was something like, I think it was Billy McMahon. They said that, and then the other said, no, that's false. It was so. And in the end, I thought, no, too hard. Scrap that one and go to this question.
This is gonna be because the technology new, but like once everyone's got their hands on it, who was the first? I guess it's hard to. Unless records are really really obvious. I'm gonna guess some First World
So
War
when and where?
radios, but like not major. I feel like it's got to be either the 1920s or 30s. I'll say late 1920s, like 1928, something like that. Where? Probably in Sydney.
Yeah, I'm going to pretty much give that to you. 1923 in Sydney.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
they had
okay.
the
So
course on
that's
2SB. Yeah.
That's earlier than I would have thought. Hey.
Oh, I mean, I think you were pretty. I think you were pretty much in the ballpark.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then finally, approximately how many kilometres of copper cable did the NBN Co purchase for its network, mainly for fibre to the node and fibre to the C. What was fibre to the FTTC? What was that? Fibre to
the curb. To the curb.
Curb. Thank you.
And then you have a copper cable from your house to the curb.
Exactly. So to run copper cable and replace it, so how much of the stuff did they buy for its network?
It's going to be some astronomical number. I have no idea. I don't even have a point of reference for this, but I can tell you it's
ridiculous.
It's going to be ridiculous. It'll be millions of kilometers, I'm sure.
Ooh,
maybe
not that ridiculous.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
100,000 kilometers of cable. It's a nice round number. I have no idea.
Well, 50,000, which is still a lot of cable.
Okay, that actually feels less than I would have thought. Okay.
Well, there was already a lot in the ground.
That's true.
And that was bought for what they thought they were going to have to do to extend that the national broadband network. So yeah, that's a shirtload of cable. But you're right, it's not millions.
No. That's what I thought. But then again, you're right. They put a lot of fiber in the ground as well, didn't they? So it wasn't like they were, redoing the entire copper network,
yes.
which probably is millions of kilometers.
Oh,
yeah.
God, it would have to be an insane amount that was actually already in the ground. Given everything that was joined. Well done again.
I am sad. We've got fiber to the premises, and when we move, we will not, and we'll be going to Starlink. So there's one thing I'm not. I'm gonna miss. I'll mourn the fiber connection, but these things happen. So,
well, they do. But Starlink, I hear some very good reports on.
Yeah, and it's getting better all the time, so they say. So, I'll let you all know when you hear me going, then you can.
Yeah, exactly.
But on that, while we've got the beautiful, lovely fibre connection, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Australia Talks. If you have any feedback or suggestions for topics, please get in touch with us on our email at australiatalks@proton.me, or if you want to send us anything, quite frankly. We'd just be grateful if you could subscribe and give us an honest review, as this helps us out immensely. But the best thing you can do to support the show is just share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it. Otherwise, join us next week for another episode of Australia Talks. As always, thanks for listening, and don't forget to tell your mum I love her.
Particularly on Mother's Day this Sunday.
Exactly, don't forget.
Thanks, DK.
See ya.